isn't the second set of books, it is the books.
Correct. The Comprehensive Annual Financial Report will show the budget. They call it the General Purpose Fund. And it'll show everything else, all other income, the investments that have built up over decades and decades, the net worth of that government. You know, if you lost your job today, Alex, okay, how are you going to pay for your budget, for your house?
Well, I'd have to work for another radio network.
No, you couldn't get a job. You were disabled. If you had an investment fund, say built up over the last 20 years, equal to $1 million.
Well, see, I'm not like the government and these private corporations that work together. I'm not out there with cops squeezing people for money and taxing the daylights out of folks and all of this. I don't have any money.
I did a little logistical survey, even in my own hometown here in Prescott. I looked at taxes, fines, and fees levied against the public in traffic fines via population 20 years ago versus today. 600% increase per population. It's a revenue-generating venture. I mean, if you could pull people over and clip them for $100 any day of the week, you become a millionaire overnight, correct, Alex?
Yeah. And you hire the cop. Well, hold on. You hire the cop. Now they're only hiring cops with low IQs. That's even been in the news. You hire a cop that'll go out. You pay 30-something grand a year. He generates you $1 million. And you just expand and hire more cops. You got the people begging for more cops for some reason when we got more than we ever needed. The number of cops has doubled in the last 8 years. The number of prisons has doubled. The prison population has doubled. People are still begging for more, begging for more, begging for more. Government owns everything. They're expanding.
I go back to, you now know why Gorbachev went Democratic.
Talking about these empires, these water districts, these city councils, these county commissioners, how do the politicians and the minions running these little empires, how do they themselves profit out of this scam?
I'll give you an example from Arizona. Yavapai County, there was a border supervisor, a guy by the name of Feldmeyer, came into office about 9 years ago with a disclosed net worth of about $85,000. He's currently up to over $8 million 10 years later. He made most of his money on land transactions. His latest venture, he bought about 1,600 acres in Prescott Valley. After he buys the property, it was a ranch land with one access road on one side, another access road on the other side, but nothing connecting. And 1 year later, the most beautiful access road goes right through the property. Now, the county fairgrounds and racetrack, which was built 100 years ago, which was too small to handle the need for services, they had to move. Guess where they're going to move? Right next door to his property. Guess what's going up on his property? To the new golf course and condominium complex. Where's the money coming from? The county bank, run by the boys. They'll pull out $5 to $7 million on that venture alone.
And that's just one little county out of hundreds of counties in this country.
And there were a lot of people complaining about him, so there were two groups that started a recall petition against him. And they were the regular, public tax protest groups, and they were slowly getting signatures for a recall. He gets his best friends to start a third recall petition against himself. They immediately get all the signatures required, being that they're well networked, and complete the signature requirement. And then they go to the Superior Court judge, his best friend. I'm an elected official. I can't have 3 recall petitions against me at the same time. You're going to have to invalidate 2 of them. Guess which 2 they invalidated? The citizens' recall petition. The third one started off by his friends. Guess what happened to that?
Got dropped.
Dropped, correct. The game is absolute, and we're talking millions of dollars. It's not the Joe's six-pack crowd betting $5 on the football game, who's going to win on Dallas. These guys have worked hard to build their little empires. You know, if you went to a cocaine dealer and said, I heard you were dealing $5 million of cocaine this year. Is that true? Oh, you're crazy. I've never even touched this stuff. I don't even know what it looks like. You know? They're going to perpetuate their game. There's a lot of money involved here.
And you talked about how using the Orange County debacle, the feds have now streamlined and make the counties and cities and school districts and water districts funnel their money through their gates. How does that feed into this?
Well, the largest investment pool was the pension funds. And back in 1981, the Fed sent out a transmittal letter to the local governments. But by the way, there's 85,000 separate corporations in local government. They sent out a transmittal letter saying, you and local governments have very odd and peculiar rules regarding the management of your pension funds, which keep you restrictive from using such trading vehicles such as derivatives, options, advanced forward currency transactions, puts, calls. This costs you billions of dollars each year. CalPERS, which did very well for the California pension funds, have reorganized under a national program, which we recommend you participate with. Under this program, you will not be restricted to not using derivatives, futures, calls, puts, and options, and thus you can benefit. So in 1981, they created the Mega Market Makers accounts through consolidation of the government pension funds. If you look at the exponential growth in the Dow from 1981 forward, you now know why. Composite government was securing their open interest and takeover of the marketplace. And now they're working on the international marketplace.
How does the United Nations fit into this with the desertification treaty that the Republicans accidentally passed after Clinton signed it? They didn't mean to give the United Nations 70%.
Let's go back.
They gave them 70% of the control over 70% of the land in our country, 100% of it. That's public record now, folks. October 18th, 2000 passed. I thought it was bad 4 years ago, the UN taking over the national parks and monuments. How does the United Nations fit into this? Because the same big bankers that set up the UN are now giving it control over our country. Why is that happening?
Let's go back to 1945. There was two pesky little documents that existed in the United States which protected the populace. We had the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. This kept the powermongers from having absolute control over the people. Well, let's create the United Nations, 1945. Corporate headquarters, New York. Let's pay 65% of the dues for all of the member nations so they will participate so we can give some kind of validity to this organization. We don't care if we give them a loan and they default on it after they pay their dues. The IMF will pick up the tab. So here we have the United States boys creating the UN. Now they are giving authority to the UN for judicial, administrative, military authority, property, because the UN is not subject to those two pesky little problems, the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. Thus, the boys controlling the show now have a vehicle they can use, the UN, to control the populace of the United States that is exempt from constitutional law and the Bill of Rights.
And on the screen, we're going to put up Infowars.com that has the desertification treaty and other details and links directly to Congress at Infowars.com for folks to check that out. And I am building a site with Walter Burian's information on Infowars.com about the comprehensive annual financial reports, and that will be up sometime next week. And if you just type in CAFR, CAFR, into a search engine, you'll get thousands of links to government websites bragging about how much money they have and how much stocks and bonds and how many companies they own. It is empire building.
Keep in mind, Alex, they have perpetuated this empire, and they are growing unabated. They have accomplished their objective, the complete financial takeover over the wealth of this country.
All right,
recapping. The public continues to fund it.
Recapping, Walter, microcosm, there's counties, cities, states, the feds, cappers. They only tell us about the budget in Texas. Oh, we had a $4 billion surplus in 99. We had a $6.9 billion surplus in 98. We have this big phony political fight between the Republicans and the Democrats, the same people at the top, the same committee people, fighting over how much of that. Hold on.
$1 billion surplus going into the year 2004.
Yeah, fighting over how much of a surplus we'll have, how much they'll give us back in tax cuts, when really in 98 they had $435 billion. The point is, they don't need more money, they don't need more taxes. Taxes could be completely phased out. Now, Walter Burian, give us the solutions of how this problem could be fixed here in the next 10 minutes.
Well, as I mentioned, I talked to a heavyweight in California and briefed him on the proposal of setting up an annuity pension fund for the resident property owners and taxpayers on a city level, county level, and state level, whereby the surplus revenues are deposited into. The venture and enterprise projects, which no way government should be owning, are sold back into the private sector, golf courses, the whole nine yards, phenomenal assets, which they should not be owning, and where overgrowth took place, downsizing. I gave the example of Arizona, 1,000% increase in 15 years in revenue taken. With those three areas, you create a phenomenal investment pool of funds under this annuity